Before I get started, I do consulting on where you can move. I'll work with you to find the perfect place for you to move to. There's more information at the end of the video about that. Now let's get started. Okay, so this is the ultimate list, everyone. I get a lot of emails from people who want to know where the best places are to live, but usually the best places are just too expensive. They're the best because there's no crime and the schools are great and there's loads of entertainment, but these places are not realistic for many of us. Then you have the crowd who wants to know where the cheapest places to live are. But again, you have the whole problem with cheap. Cities and towns are cheap because, well, let's be honest, nobody wants to live there. But this list is different. This one will probably be the most helpful list of places to move of all time. At least, of all my time. I took a bunch of data from the best list and combined a bunch of data from the cheapest list and was shocked when I ran the data and it spit out a really solid list of great, cheap places to live. I was like, damn, this is the ultimate list, and I'm sharing it with you today. And that's exactly what we're going to do in this video. Every state has a best cheap place to live, or a cheap best place to live, however you want to think about it. Hopefully these places remain cheap and great. There's just not enough cheap and great left in this country. Seems like all of the good places to live that are actually affordable are getting harder and harder to find. The best and cheapest in the USA. The best and cheapest in the every state. Yeah. These places are great. Okay, so here we are in little Daphne, Alabama. It's a pretty neat community way down along Mobile Bay in Baldwin County. This whole corner of the state down here is all clean and quiet and safe. Daphne is an outstanding place to live, and it's not too bad on the cost of living side. The average house in Daphne is only about $250,000. See how that works? That's the methodology I used for every single state. Now let's move on. There's probably only a handful of places in Alaska you've heard of. This is Fairbanks. Fairbanks has the second lowest poverty level in the state and the second lowest unemployment rate too. It's a college town and home to a lot of military personnel and is a tourist hub as well. If there's a downside of Fairbanks, crime here is the third highest in the state. Oh no. But rent's about $1,100 and the average house is about $253,000. Our best, cheapest place to live in Arizona certainly isn't going to be Prescott or Chandler, which are great places to live but are really expensive. You might be surprised to hear that a super great place to live here which won't break the bank is little Sahuarita, a Tucson suburb. Sahuarita is a family-friendly town with lots of good schools and it's way safer than South Tucson. Homes here are about $310,000, which is a lot, but not a lot for a neat place to live in one of the fastest growing states in the nation. And look at all the space you get. That's so important today, right? Northwest Arkansas is running away as a new jam for this whole region, and Bentonville has emerged as one of the best places you can live in this whole region. Yes, there are some really posh places to live in Northwest Arkansas. An average house in Bentonville is $339,000, which is $30,000 more than you'd pay in nearby suburbs like Rogers, but Bentonville is far better than its nearby communities, so you pay a little bit more here. But look at how much home prices have gone up here. 26% in the last year alone. So this already may be getting too rich for many people's blood. The best places to live in California are going to be far out of reach for most of us, but little Redlands in San Bernardino County is one of a few places in the area that aren't ghetto and are still really nice. Redlands schools are really good, and most people here have high-paying jobs. Homes are about $550K, which is a lot for most people, but for California, believe it or don't, that's a steal.
If a house doesn't cost $1 million, I don't want anything to do with it.
Well, Karen, maybe you need to get your priorities in order. It's not always about impressing people anymore. It's about what's inside that counts.
I'm a map. Inside of me is more paper.
I don't know if I believe that. She's like 99% paper, 1% hate. Maybe more. So everyone's moving to Colorado these days, especially people from California. Windsor is still a somewhat affordable place to live in this state where it's really nice and safe and clean. A home here, though, is shot through the roof and it's $537,000. But this whole state's expensive. Believe it or not, this is actually not a bad deal. Windsor's a small town located between Loveland and Fort Collins. Middletown, Connecticut's emerged as a worthy place to live that won't make you broke. It's a college town where Wesleyan University is located. A home here is only $258K. That's a steal for Connecticut. The unemployment rate here is the fourth lowest in the state, and it has the fifth lowest crime rate in the whole state too. And another interesting stat, 98% of people here have health insurance. Newark is a college town too. There's going to be a lot of college towns on this list, I think. There's a lot of young people here and a lot of bars and restaurants along Main Street. It's growing quickly here, and there's a lot of jobs in the area. It's pretty safe here too. Homes are in the $290,000 range, and like everywhere else, going up fast. For Delaware, Newark is good, but it's one of the worst, best, cheapest places we'll talk about. Just outside of Tampa is Dunedin, population 36,000. It's just north of Clearwater, right along the Gulf. It's very walkable and safe and has a really fun little downtown area. They call it Doggyden because everybody here has a damn dog. Homes here are still only about $350K, which is really good for an excellent place to live in Florida, especially in the greater Tampa area. Dunedin actually ranks as one of the best places we'll talk about on this whole list. Now, I've harped on how fast the Atlanta metro area is growing and how crazy the traffic is here. While rural Georgia might be better for some people, fact is, greater Atlanta is still the place to be. Woodstock's a northern Atlanta suburb that's a groovy place to live, and it's not as overpriced as nearby communities like Milton and Dunwoody and Alpharetta. In Woodstock, you can get a house for about $358,000, but prices have gone up by 20% in the last year, and that is just so sad. Now, Hawaii is not going to be cheap for anybody except the homeless people who line the streets in many areas. There's a community called Ewa Gentry on the Big Island that was once called the best place for singles, everyone. And you're just a short drive to white sand beaches, too. But it's really packed here, and home prices are still close to $700,000. I'm telling you, it's hard to find an affordable, great place to live in Hawaii, which is why a lot of people are leaving this state for good. Now, this one will be interesting. Idaho is the second or third fastest growing state, depending on which publication you read. While a lot of people are driving up the home prices in the Boise area, Moscow has remained well under the radar. It's way up along the Washington state line, kind of across the border from Pullman. Moscow is just a classic northern Idaho small town with low crime and highly desired schools. Homes are still well under $400,000, which is actually good for Idaho these days. It's crazy. Most of the northern Chicago burbs are going to be well out of reach for most people, but it's the best region in the state to live for quality of life and safety. While some of the other Chicago burbs are much nicer, they're also going to be much more expensive. In Park Ridge, it's about $479K for a house, but considering so many people are leaving Illinois, you might get a bargain. Way over on the western side of Indiana is West Lafayette, home to Purdue University. I used to live there. There's a lot of really nice communities here, and it's really safe. While most of the state's rich, fancy people live in the expensive burbs of northern Indianapolis, the frugal, smart people live in West Lafayette, where homes are still under $300K. Just about anywhere in Iowa is going to be sort of affordable, and Iowa doesn't have any really, truly terrible places to live. One of the best and cheapest places to live in Iowa is Waukee, a community of 24,000 people west of West Des Moines. But word is out. This place has doubled in population since the last census. Doubled? That's a lot. The Waukee schools are excellent, and there's a lot of younger families moving here too. Hardly anybody here is without work. Home prices here are going to shock you though. $291,000. Yes, for Iowa, you were probably expecting a lower home price, but you don't always get what you want, do you? Just about all the good communities in Kansas with some sort of life are going to be in the greater Kansas City metro area. Most of the expensive places are close to downtown, but you can drive just a few exits down I-35 to find little Gardner, population 24,000. It's just right past Olathe, which is also a great place to live. Just a few exits down the road is going to save you $60,000 or more on a home price. And according to the data, Gardner has a lot of young, smart people who do well in school. Whenever I see a kid ditching school, I take him straight to the principal. Are you allowed to arrest kids, Super Gay Cop? I don't know if that's allowed. Uh-huh. Okay. So just a 20-minute drive south of Cincinnati is Independence, Kentucky, which has doubled in size over the last decade. It's the kind of place where everybody knows everyone, and it's really safe, and it's a steal at $245,000. Most of the farms have disappeared, and in place are more and more homes. Word must be out, but I'll bet you didn't know about it. Yes, there are expensive places to live in Louisiana, but many are in the greater New Orleans area, which has a terrible reputation for crime. For a much safer environment and a cheaper home, you can go to Lafayette. There's plenty of homes down here. There's plenty of jobs here, and the schools are pretty darn good too. It's just a really cool place where homes are well under $200,000. This place is a steal, people. Lafayette, Louisiana. Now, the Portland metro area got a big boost in new residents when a lot of people fled to the area because of COVID. That increased home prices quite a bit here. South Portland is a gorgeous place and has super low crime and really well-off residents. However, homes have gone up a lot lately. It's about $428K for a house now, and that's actually low for the Portland metro area. There's just not a lot of affordable, awesome places for families in this state. But if there's a downside, South Portland is the most liberal city in this whole state. Uh-oh. Bowie is a really nice place to live on the fringes of the terrible Washington, D.C. metro area. Here, it's actually sort of affordable even to this day, although the average home price is about $450K, and that might seem like a lot. That's not a lot to live in the D.C. area, though. Bowie is clean and safe, and there's a lot to do here, but it's getting crowded more and more all the time. If you drove 30 minutes north of Boston, past the terrible city of Lynn, you'd come to Peabody, which is still sort of affordable for the greater Boston area. Homes here are just under $600,000, which is actually not a lot for the greater Boston metro area. I know, Massachusetts is just really expensive. But Peabody has the state's 8th lowest crime rate, and only 2% of residents don't have health insurance. It's not posh wealthy here. It's more down-to-earth, upper middle class. But Peabody, not too bad a price to live in a great place in the greater Boston area. There's actually some really nice places to live in the greater Detroit area, and you know it's going to be affordable here. One such place is Royal Oak. It's just about a 20-minute drive from downtown Detroit. There's a cool little downtown area here that supposedly has friendly people all around. You might be shocked to hear the schools are pretty darn good too, and the crime's actually pretty low. Homes here are just about $300K.
I would never live anywhere near Detroit. I hear bad stories about that place all the time.
Well, little Mappy kid, maybe you should put your TikTok down and go outside and explore a little bit.
Whatever.
You know, there's a big world out there beyond the screen of your phone, right? Most of the best places to live in Minnesota are going to be in the western Minneapolis burbs. Many are pretty pricey at this point. One of the cheapest, but still great places to live in this part of the state is Plymouth, which is about 15 minutes from downtown. It's just about as perfect here as it gets. Amazing schools, low crime, and tons of stuff to do. Hardly anybody lives in poverty here. Home prices have gone through the roof, though, all the way to $460,000. That's actually not too bad for this side of the city. If you don't like that price, just go to Duluth. It's cheaper, but it's colder. The bad part about Southaven, Mississippi is you're really close to Memphis, but it's a pretty divine place to raise a family, and actually surprisingly affordable, being the state's third biggest city and all. Southaven is filled with hardworking, successful young families. $215,000 for a home here. Get in on that, people! Like Minneapolis, all the best places in Missouri are on the western side of St. Louis. There are some really amazing, safe, super cool cities on the western fringes of St. Louis, but most are just really expensive. However, O'Fallon is still within the price range of many people at $300K per house. The crime here is one of the lowest in the state, and the schools in O'Fallon always win a bunch of awards. Good for you, O'Fallon kids. Now there's a ton of teeny little inexpensive places all over Montana where you could snap up a whole plot of land and live off the fish you catch, but they're all way out in the middle of nowhere and we'd never see you again. For a realistic option, there's a little Laurel, about 20 minutes down I-90 from Billings. It's super chill here, and homes are about $300K. Way out in the middle of kinda nowhere is Kearney, population 30,000. It's a college town. 30,000 people may not seem like a lot, but it's still the 5th biggest city in this big old state. It's also growing really fast. Most people in Kearney have good jobs, and crimes are few and far between. And that price tag of $242,000 looks pretty good, huh, America? Huh?
Move to Las Vegas. See.
No one. We don't want people moving to Las Vegas. Most of Vegas is a dump, though there's some good Mexican food there. I'll agree with that. A better option's Henderson, which isn't really that culturally stimulating outside of the whole gambling thing. But Henderson has great schools and really low crime. A lot of people are moving here. I don't know if you want that or not. Dover's a cool little place just outside of Portsmouth where your kids can ride their bikes around without getting into trouble. There's a lot of culture in the region too. Dover has a beautiful little downtown with a lot of stuff to do, so it's perfect for mommy and daddy. At $388,000, it's far cheaper here than nearby Portsmouth too. New Jersey is just crazy expensive. There's nowhere cheap in this state worth moving to. The best, cheapest place is probably Fairlawn, but it's still going to set you back $512,000. It's just outside of Paterson, and it's close to the New York City metro area. It's safe, and the schools are really good, and supposedly people who live here say it's unpretentious. So, there you go. On the opposite end of the price spectrum from New Jersey, we come to New Mexico, where everything's cheap. That's because the state struggles in every conceivable metric you can think of. It's just very sad. The Albuquerque suburb of Rio Rancho is pretty good, though, and homes are still in the $270,000 range. There are far less expensive, safe, quiet places to live in New Mexico, but you might as well live in Mexico. They're so far away from society. New York's even more expensive than New Jersey is. Now, out on Long Island is East Rockaway, a little village in Nassau County with less than 10,000 people. You'd be really close to Long Beach and other neat little communities, but it's still $620K for a damn house. Upstate is far cheaper, but it's upstate. Cary gets all the headlines when it comes to growth in this state, but it's become very expensive and very crowded. Little Fuquay-Varina on the southern fringes of the Raleigh metro area is a neat place. There's a cool little downtown area and oak trees and rocking chairs on porches everywhere. It's growing really fast, and at $350,000, it's a steal. But as more and more people move to the area, that's not going to last long. If you're moving to the Raleigh area, Fuquay-Varina is under the radar. You'd have to be pretty hardcore to move to North Dakota, but the prices are well worth it. The best, cheapest place is going to be West Fargo, where prices are still well under $300K. The jobless rate, the dropout rate, and the crime are all in the bottom 10 statewide. West Fargo. So I know I bag on Dayton a lot because it's gone downhill so far, but Dayton actually has a lot of great suburbs. The little city of Bellbrook isn't well known outside of the state, but it's a desirable little quiet place where you can get a home for $250,000 in a solid neighborhood. And get this, the unemployment rate in Bellbrook was below 1% for a while, which is pretty much the lowest jobless rate in the whole damn country. People in Bellbrook are like, damn it! Or maybe they're excited. Somebody mentioned them. I wouldn't know. $216,000 for a house sounds like a joke, but it's Oklahoma, or Jokelahoma. I just made that up. Broken Arrow is the state's fourth biggest city. It's just outside of Tulsa, which is the state's second biggest city. Now, Tulsa's improving. It's getting better. It's not going to blow you away with excitement, but you may not even have to go there very often because Broken Arrow has a lot to do. Ask people in Oregon their opinion on the best place to live, and you won't get a consensus. The Portland metro area has a lot of good areas, but the price is just so much out of control for most of us these days. Corvallis, home to Oregon State University, is a great place to live, and homes are still in the $465,000 range. That's not bad for a desirable place in Oregon that's not overrun with homeless people. Yet. State College, PA, for $340,000? That's right. It's home to Penn State University, so there's going to be a lot to do here to enrich that little mind of yours. It's a super place to raise kids, and being right near a college is amazing.
No.
You don't like learning? There's nothing wrong with a good education, Nappy, especially since all the blue-collar jobs are in China and Mexico now. Nappy always goes against the crowd. He's got to change that. Cranston, Rhode Island is a pretty decent-sized city. It's just outside of Providence. Well, it's Rhode Island. Everything's just outside of Providence. Cranston gets good scores for families and excellent scores for schools. And it's pretty safe, too. Ever heard of Malden, South Carolina? People in Malden are like, yes. It's a really cool little place just outside of Greenville, which is also a really neat place. In Malden, homes are only $234,000. This might be one of the best bangs for your buck on this entire list. Malden, South Carolina, people. Like a lot of the states we already talked about, you have to really live the Gatsby lifestyle to pay a lot for a home in South Dakota. Brookings, a smallish community a wee bit north of Sioux Falls, is a steal at the current average home price of $225,000. There's only 25,000 people here, but it's still the third biggest city in South Dakota. It's a college town, so there's going to be a lot of young, drunk people around, but it's still really safe. Go Jackrabbits! So there's a few Memphis and Knoxville burbs that you'd probably like, which are very affordable. Places like Maryville and Bartlett. But for all the jobs and fun, Hendersonville might be the best choice. It's north of Nashville, where practically everybody's moving these days. Hendersonville's hanging on there price-wise, but soon it too will be out of reach. Unless you want small town life, there just aren't any good affordable places left in Texas. All the suburbs of the major cities here are just exploding. Sadly, the best city that's the cheapest is Allen, but homes are still pushing $450K and going up every week. Allen is a North Dallas posh burb where you'll have to get a fancy car and put the kids in private football lessons if you want to fit in. Utah's just about as expensive as Texas is at this point, since it's the fastest growing state and all. Out of the top 10 best places to live in Utah, there's not a single one under $500,000. That's just crazy. There is a place called Providence, way up near Logan, where things aren't too crazy cost-wise, but it's a tiny town. I'm telling you, don't plan on moving to the greater Salt Lake area with less than $500,000 to spare. Man, oh man. The capital of Vermont's Montpelier, and it's a wonderful place to settle in. There's a bunch of good jobs here and some really smart residents. In fact, 60% of residents here have a college degree. Crime is also the second lowest in the state. And that home price isn't that eye-opening, right everyone? I wouldn't recommend anybody moves their family to the DC metro area. It's just too congested and expensive, and people are just out of touch with reality. Now take the DC area away and you're limited to just a few good places in Virginia where you can get a good job and still be relatively safe. Blacksburg is one of those cities. It's another college town, which means loads of fun, especially on the weekends. $313,000 is not that much to live at the base of the mountains, is it? Okay, so anything in the Seattle area is just going to be out of the question. It's just way too expensive. There's nothing under $600K. The cheapest, best place I could find is a little place called Kennewick, way out in the middle of nowhere. It ranks well on the desirable statistics, but you're on your own here, pal.
The price of homes is so high now that most of us little people can't afford one anymore.
I know, Mappy. I'm sorry. Hey, would your family like to move in with me so you can save up money to buy a nice home?
We'd love that.
JK, you guys aren't moving in with me. What would the neighbors say with a bunch of maps running around? I actually think my HOA might find me. I can't even have chickens where I live. You're not moving in with me, Mappy. You crazy? Even Mappy could afford a place in West Virginia, but I think he thinks he's too good for this place. The best place to live in West Virginia based on statistics is Hurricane. Don't worry about the price. You can afford it. You can afford anything in West Virginia. Madison's a super cool place to raise a kid or three. Just south of Madison's a little gem of a place called Oregon. There's 11,000 people here in Little Oregon, where you might be bored from time to time, but Madison's only a few exits away. Average home price, $364,155. And finally, Wyoming. They're always last. Poor Wyoming. Just about everything outside of Jackson is easy on the pocketbook here. Little Cody is the best place to live, but it's tiny. Homes here are about $342,000. Sheridan is also a great place to live, and it's a little bit bigger and cheaper too. Here, homes are $307,000. There, I gave you two options for the last one. Now get out there, people, and start house hunting. These home prices aren't going to last forever, unless you move to West Virginia. They might be even cheaper next week. The best and cheapest in the USA. The best and cheapest in the every state. Yeah. These places hey guys, if you learned something new about America or what it's like to live in America, great. You should think about subscribing and turning on your notifications. You can also click one of these videos or playlists for more. You can also now buy my songs on iTunes and other formats. Click the link in the description. Thanks for watching. And remember, while we all might have different views, we should all be nice to each other and try to make the U.S. a better place in a positive way.
This is Sage, Nick's manager. This has been a Corner House Entertainment production.
And are you looking to move and need advice? I do consulting. That's right. I'll sit down and talk about where the next perfect place for you and your family should be. I do it all the time. Together, let's find you a new home that's safe and checks all your boxes. You can get my email in the description to find out how I can help you find your perfect relocation.